What's up, everyone? It's the Fighting Taters Show. My name is Lucas Gephardt. He is Ryan Luke. An exciting show for you guys tonight. It is Thursday, December 19th, just a couple days before the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. We're going to have the executive director of the Potato Bowl, Danelle Brazil, joining us here in just a few minutes to talk about the upcoming bowl game between Fresno State and Northern Illinois. Also going to talk about Idaho's new coaching hire. They filled that vacancy pretty quick. So we'll go ahead and talk about that as well. And then we'll close the show with some of our first round CFP college football playoff predictions. But first, Ryan, welcome in. I know you're running late, but I don't know if you just saw this crazy thing that happened tonight in this Thursday night game. They had a free kick. Have you ever heard of this? It's a free kick field goal.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Just happened tonight in the Thursday night game.
Really? Let's see if we can pull it up.
I just saw it a couple minutes ago. There's a little bit of a delayed recording when we put this out, but basically what happened was the Broncos were punting, and the gunner ran into the guy for the Chargers who was calling a fair catch, and the penalty, they call fair catch interference. The penalty put him up into field goal range. And I guess because they called a fair catch, I was looking into this. I've never really heard of this rule before. I guess because they called a fair catch, you can then do this free kick field goal, which is basically a kickoff. And if you kick it through the uprights, you get 3 points. And the Chargers ended the half with this free kick field goal. Hasn't happened since 1976. Happened tonight on Thursday Night Football. I've never seen anything like it.
Awesome. I love it. I love when you get to see some of those things. I don't know if you remember, it was years ago, but Doug Flutie did a drop kick for 2 points, because if you do a drop kick, you get 2 points on an extra point. And he'd been practicing. So Bill Belichick threw him in, and he did a drop kick for 2 points. That's the last time I've seen anything like that. I mean, rugby, obviously that happens all the time, but kind of awesome.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like that before. So first for everything, I guess. But and a couple Idaho kids playing in that game tonight. Obviously, Scott Matlock for the Chargers. We talked about him a little bit, earlier in some of our shows. And then linebacker for the Broncos, Jonah Ellis, as well, out of Moscow, playing in that game as well. So a couple Idaho connections there on Thursday Night Football. But let's go ahead so we didn't touch on this much at all last week, Ryan, but because the news kind of came out as we were finishing the show basically last week. But Jason Eck, now the former head coach of the University of Idaho Vandals, now on his way to New Mexico. And Thomas Ford now takes over. And that's a hire that, asking a lot of these U of I folks, they like this hire a lot.
Yeah, U of I guy, right? He had coached there previously under the Eck regime, and then he went over to take a bigger role as a running backs coach with Oregon State, and then came back. But to me, I'm going to use this term grooming, and I don't mean that in a very negative sense, but it seems to me that they were grooming Ford for a while. They wanted him. It looks like he was a fast riser. He did a good job, getting them to where they were. And so, quite frankly, to me, it felt like Thomas Ford was the guy that they kind of tapped on the shoulder. Because here's the thing. We talked about this multiple times. You have success at the FCS level or the low FBS level, you're going to get knocking on the doors, because at the high levels, at the biggest, we'll call the Power Four, you have three options for coaches. Number one, you hire another big name coach, and let's take Brian Kelly from Notre Dame to LSU. That's number one. Number two, you backfill from within, somebody who's been rising the ranks, who you know really well, or you still the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator of a really good team. I mean, how many Alabama OCs and DCs are out there? Or number three, you pluck it, you try to get an upstart, a young person, a young guy who's had great success at the low level. And, New Mexico was number three. Idaho went from a kind of internal hire. And here we are. I don't think they miss a beat. I don't.
Yeah, I'm with you. This seemed like, just of how quickly it happened, it was a matter of days before they hired this guy. You can see the graphic here for our listening audience. He was the special teams and running backs coach for 2 seasons back in 22 and 2023. Vandals rushed for over 2,000 yards in both of those seasons. They had one of the best running backs in the FCS and in the Big Sky, Anthony Woods, who went on to play at Utah, rushed for 1,100 yards his final season at U of I. And then on special teams as well, they put a couple guys in the NFL as well. Hogan Hatton's now the long snapper for the Lions. and Jermaine Jackson is a punt returner for the New Orleans Saints. So this is a high-energy coach. People around this program like this hire. I think you're right. I don't think the Vandals miss a beat, and I think this – but for how quickly all this happened, seems like it was lined up.
Well, and the other thing too that I've heard from, and again, like you said, we missed this, but today we heard that he's a dynamite recruiter. They really like his energy on the recruiting trail, and he gets out there and he's able to recruit really well. And again, that's the name of the game. Hopefully he continues the trend to recruit local kids from the Valley, specifically here, but across the state, to continue bolstering that roster, because they're kind of a backbone, I mean, they're the local kids and it means something to them to play for University of Idaho. Hey, I found the free kick.
Oh, let's see it. Play it.
All right, here we go.
And then we'll get to Danielle here after we show this free kick here, but this hasn't happened since the 70s. Let's see if it loads.
Come on, loading. Come on, X. Let's go. Let's go, X. Ever since we discovered that we could share our screens, it's like changed the game for us, man.
Yeah, game changer, right?
Speaking of game changer, I dialed up. Okay? Yeah, how about I just dialed up, man?
Yeah. Did you go back to the original screen? Let's see. Oh, here we go. Maybe.
It's thinking. This
is a dinosaur, man. We finally got X loaded up here. But yeah, 57 yards from Cameron Dicker here. Here we go. So you could see they had to line up 10 yards behind from where they were kicking it from, and you can't rush it. So you can't try to block this kick. So it's basically a kickoff. And watch this thing.
Wait, what just happened?
I don't know. He made the field goal, though.
Hold on. I'm going to back it up. As long as you can see, there's a little one. All right, here we go. 50.
There you go. Yeah, look at that thing. Kicked it right through. They got 3 points. So there you go. Hasn't happened since 1976. So,
wow.
With that, let's go ahead now and bring in the executive director of the Famous Idaho Potato Bowl, Danelle Brazil. Danielle, thanks for making time for us. I don't know if you've had the chance to see that free kick field goal or not. But,
no.
No,
but it's all over my Twitter feed, and I just haven't had a chance to look at it. That's awesome.
Yeah. That's the first time I've ever seen that. So,
how
have you been? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, how have you been? I know teams got in today. I know it's a busy week for you, but again, appreciate you making time for our little podcast here.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited to be on with you guys. Thanks for having me. Kind of day one of the next 5 days of just having both teams in Boise and showing them around and letting them experience all that we have to offer, and then kick off on Monday. So it should be fun.
What's the first thing? Okay, so we have Fresno State obviously coming from the Central Valley, right? And we have Northern Illinois, which is probably freezing their butts off at this point. Let's just go along the lines. What's been the general feedback of coming to Boise? What have they said? What have the team said so far?
Yeah, so in Chicago right now it's freezing. So they got off the plane today and they were taking off jackets and taking off beanies and scarves, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this feels amazing." Fresno, on the other hand, they are a little chilly. Not used to the Boise climate, but man, we were really lucky today. It was such a beautiful, sunny day. I was able to greet them at the airport, and just standing on the tarmac and looking out towards the Boise foothills, blue skies, little snow on the mountain. We couldn't have welcomed them any better. But they're excited to be here, especially the guys from Chicago area. Boise is a place, I'm sure for a lot of them, they never thought they would come to. And so to bring them out here, bring them west, let them see the mountains and see things that we have to offer here, it's been really well received. And then obviously Fresno State has had a great season. But lots of transition in their program right now. So those guys are just excited to be with their teammates and their coaches, probably the coaching staff for the last time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we saw Marshall. I mean, you saw the news with Marshall, right? Like they bowed out and they dipped out. Luckily, Louisiana Tech, what do they say? It's 80 miles, 70 miles down the road, which ironically, I've been to Shreveport and was it Ruston? Where is it? Anyway, doesn't matter. Wherever Louisiana Tech is.
Yeah, they're in Ruston.
Yeah, that's right, Ruston.
Yeah.
Was there does that ever cross your minds? Is that part of the whole scenario? Because now, I mean, players opt out. If a coach changes, right, they have the free portal transfer, all that stuff. How do you balance that?
Yeah, as an executive director, I mean, our group, we get together often and we talk a lot. And, for the last 2 years, this has been probably the biggest item that keeps most of us, awake at night, wondering if you're going to plan all year long and have a team just not be able to make it work. And certainly we saw that in the COVID age where schools opted out when they didn't have enough guys to be, to be able to travel with and make a game happen. So yeah, I don't know a lot of the details about how everything kind of came about with Marshall, but certainly it is one of our, biggest, the thing that's always looming out there, right? Will a team be able to field a roster for your game? And, really excited when you see when those guys land in Boise, you're like, okay, they're here. We're going to play the game on Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you, I mean, I know with working with you at my day job, kind of how the process works of how teams are selected, but I feel like that's kind of something that the average fan might not know too much about. And can you kind of walk us through how we ended up with Fresno State in Northern Illinois?
Yeah. I mean, I'd say in years ago when the bowl system was just first building, a lot of it was you would have a very specific selection. So it would be whoever the number 2 team is then in that conference, they would come to your game. And now really the agreements between the bowl games and the conferences are based on what teams make the most sense. What teams can we put together for the best matchups? What teams make most sense from a travel standpoint? So that's really now how we look at it when teams are kind of picked to go to what game. And so for us, we've got our tie-in with the MAC and we've got our tie-in with the Mountain West. So we get a school from each of those conferences. And it just it comes down to, how the conferences see, certain teams they want to reward with certain trips. And, when I found out that we were going to have Northern Illinois, I was super excited. Obviously they had a great story this season by knocking off Notre Dame, and their head coach is a terrific guy. And so I was really fired up about that. And then obviously it was really fun to see Fresno, they had their struggles throughout the year, but to get to 6 wins, I mean, that was an incredible performance by them. So, when we talk about the transfer portal, I look at, who the teams were 3 weeks ago when we picked teams, and, they're certainly much different today. Both of their rosters have been impacted by the portal, but, I still think it's going to be a really good game. You look at it on paper, and I think the matchup makes sense. I also think, to add to that, when I look at, we're a group of 5 bowl game. So we get 2 schools out of the group of 5. And when I look at the brands, Fresno State and Northern Illinois and other bowl games, I feel like we're in really good shape. I think my personal opinion is this is the best group of 5 matchup in bowl season, especially from a brand recognition perspective.
Yeah, totally. I think this is a great matchup. You can see it on the screen here. Northern Illinois, 2.5-point favorite, over under 40.5. So should be a close game, like you said. And to have a team like Northern Illinois that if that game was on their home field, maybe they're tearing down goalposts after they beat Notre Dame.
Yeah,
we did that a couple weeks ago here in Boise. So how quickly did it take to get some new goalposts up in the north end zone?
Yeah, it's funny. Excuse me. I was so excited for Boise State, and I'm a big Boise State fan. I'm a big college football fan, and so glad that the fans got to enjoy that, really historic moment. I will say it was about midnight that night. I texted the field manager, the guy that manages the whole facility, and I'm like, so you
So we
will
have
get a new
goalposts, right?
goalpost by the 23rd, right? And they were all over it, and I had no doubts that it was going to come together. But yeah, so we got a goalpost. It looks beautiful. Should be set.
Yeah, that's good to hear.
So, you talked a little bit about the evolution of the bowl games and how they've kind of changed in the face of them. And there's some rumbling that, do we even need bowl games, and what's the purpose or whatever. But from your standpoint and from putting together a bowl game, what does that mean for? Well, two questions. The first one is, what do you think, right? Like, do we need bowl games? What's the evolution going to look like? Do we just need playoff games, But then the second part, which probably feeds the first question, is what type of impact does it have? How good is it for, and we love this, I mean, we talk about all sports Idaho, so how good is it for Idaho and the Boise area to have this bowl game?
Yeah, I mean, my opinion about college football's postseason is one, I think it's the best postseason we have. It's fun, it's meaningful for a lot of people. I do think it needs to evolve, and I think it will evolve in this new landscape. We as an organization have to change and evolve right along with it to make us relevant. But with the caveat that I really feel like for college football to stay as popular as it is, we have to keep some of this tradition alive. And I really feel like bowl games are a really important tradition of college football that needs to be part of the future of college football. So, however this looks moving forward, I'm a big proponent in keeping bowl games around. Obviously, because I work in the business and I get to see, like today, seeing those kids from Northern Illinois, I call them kids, but young men from Northern Illinois get off the airplane and see the Boise Mountains for the first time, and they're smiling and they're so excited. I got to go into Fresno's gift suite where we give them lots of cool gifts and they get to pick them out, and they were so excited because a lot of these kids pick out gifts for their family, so they're able to get mom and dad Christmas presents. So I feel like the bowl games are still so valuable to student athletes, to coaches. Our game in particular, the timing of it's really awesome because teams get to have 3 more weeks of practice. They get to have the bowl game, and then everybody gets to go home for Christmas. And so I really think that's important. And I think if you ask most head coaches, they would agree with me. On the other side, we're owned and operated by ESPN. So I work for ESPN. And when we look at the content that we broadcast, the 2-3 weeks of bowl games are the most watched programming for ESPN throughout the course of the year.
Wow.
So when you're talking about this ecosystem of revenue, right? The conferences partner with the networks that to have the networks pay the conferences. I mean, you've got to have that money. That system has to churn. And so because bowl season is so lucrative, I think that, we've got to have some form of that moving forward. I love the playoffs. I think this 12-team playoff's been really exciting. I think it's made, regular season games really mean a lot more. And it's been really fun. And obviously from, what it's done, I know Lucas and I have talked about this, what it's done for the city of Boise, with people just so excited about Boise State and their future in the college football playoff this year. You just can't, you can't not love it.
Yeah. One of my favorite parts about this game is that you cannot watch this game on TV and not know where it is. The famous Idaho Potato Bowl on the blue field.
Right?
That's right.
That's only in
That's
one
right.
spot, right?
I love it.
Yeah. That's
Well,
my favorite part. As I'm someone who works for the Visitors Bureau in Visible, that's my favorite part about that game. You can't watch it not know where that game's being played.
I mean, I look at, and there's certain bowl games that have very, I don't want to say bizarre ties, but everybody has to have a title sponsor.
Pop-Tart Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, some of them just don't make sense to their communities. And Famous Idaho Potato Bowl makes so much sense to who we are. We're really proud of it. We get really excited that we get to expose the rest of the world for that 3.5 hours of our broadcast to the potato industry, to the agriculture industry in the state of Idaho. So, yeah, like you said, it's like you see the blue field, you know what game it is.
I do have to tell a famous Idaho Potato Bowl story that is really funny. So I'd worked for Nissan at the time, and we did this tour where we could order the Heisman Trophy in, and there are 2 Nissan dealerships here in the valley. And I brought it, and I contacted the bowl. I was like, hey, and I wasn't broadcasting at the time. I was actually broadcasting in Utah. And I said, hey, I have the Heisman Trophy. You want me to bring it to the bowl game? And I think it was Craig was like, wait, this has got to be a joke. Like, what are you talking about? I was like, no, I legit have it, man. Like, I have the Heisman Trophy. And so we got this backdrop. He's like, yeah, come on in. And I'm telling you, it was a fantastic hit. But the best part was, I think it was Western Michigan or Central Michigan. I can't remember one of the two. Probably Western. Anyway, they the kids, I call them kids myself, right? Like, they're on the sideline and they're just looking at this thing. Like, what is that? As they're running out of the portal, in and out. Then on the way, so then they go back. So at halftime, and then as they're coming back, they all had their cell phones, and they're stopping, and their buddies are taking pictures on the cell phone.
In full uniform
on the side.
I love it.
And Andre Ware, Andre Ware was broadcasting up in the booth, and he's like, is that the Heisman Trophy? What's the Heisman Trophy doing at the famous Idaho Potato Bowl?
I love. It was
classic. It was phenomenal.
You know, that Heisman Trophy, if you've seen it in person, it is something that it's very mesmerizing. I don't know if it's just me, but man, when I see that thing, I'm like, you just stare at it. It's so cool. So I can see where it'd be a little bit of a distraction for the guys. That's awesome.
One of the kids was like, Heisman Trophy posing right next to I'm sure his coach. Sure. But what do you do at the end of the season, right? It's the last game, and your coach is like, what do you go ahead, take the dang picture.
Oh, yeah. And you feel that. I feel that with these 2 coaches, too. I mean, they're certainly all business, and they want to win the game. But they do want the kids to enjoy themselves. And so many of them, this is their last time they're ever going to play. It's the last time they're ever going to wear that helmet and wear that school logo and be with their teammates and friends. And so it's such a cool opportunity. And I feel very blessed to be able to be a part of it.
Yeah. So today is Thursday. Teams got in today.
Yeah.
Game is Monday. So what do you got planned for them this weekend?
Yeah, so tomorrow we're going to take them both snow tubing up at Gateway Parks in Eagle. Mm-hmm. We started it last year, and it was phenomenal. The kids loved it. I mean, I've never Blake Anderson, who was the coach at Utah State, he's no longer there, but he's been to a lot of bowl games, and he came up to me afterwards, and he's like, this was the best bowl event I've ever been a part of. So like, you can't get any better than that when a coach tells you that. So we're going to do that tomorrow. On Saturday, we've got a big breakfast over at the Boise Center, an FCA breakfast with 2 great speakers.
FCA as in Fellowship of Christian Athletes?
Fellowship of Christian Athletes, yeah. So Prince Amukamura, who played for the Giants when they won the Super Bowl, will be speaking. And then Mike Sanfratello, that played for I believe the 49ers. He's going to be speaking as well. So that's a really cool event at the Boise Center, and there's still tickets available if people are interested in that. That'll be on Saturday morning. And then really Saturday night, I think we've got one group that's going to Wahoo's for some fun. We've got another group that's going to take in the Steelheads game.
So
that'll be great. Yeah. And then, on Sunday, they're locked and loaded for game day. So it's pretty. We'll have press conferences with the coaches, and then making the final adjustments to the blue and Bronco Stadium, and kicking off at 12:30 on Monday.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I'm excited for it. I've gone every year, even before that I started living here. Basically, ever since I moved to Idaho, I've gone to this game every year.
28. This is our 28th game, which is just crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And
I know.
Yeah, that's a good track record for bowl. I feel like there's bowl games popping up every year or two that are new, and to have 28 years and to have as long running as a title sponsor as the Potato Commission has, that's got to mean volumes for you.
It's huge.
Talk about that though, the Potato Commission, because I don't think people understand. I mean, the Famous Idaho Potato. I mean, my gosh, I'm from Idaho. I have an Idaho on my. I get it. We have potatoes in Idaho, but what does that actually mean in terms of the sponsorship?
Yeah, so the Idaho Potato Commission is our sponsor. Their office is in Eagle, and of course, they represent not only the potato growers in the state, but the processors, the shippers. Anybody that's involved in the potato industry, and for them, they want to get out the word that Idaho grows the best potatoes. So what an opportunity to be kind of like, they call it their 3.5-hour infomercial on ESPN. So and it's a fun sponsor. I mean, they love tongue in cheek, kind of poking fun at themselves. They've got Spuddy Buddy, like the best mascot ever. So it's really fun to be able to tell people when I travel, I'm like, oh, I work for the Famous Idaho Potato Bowl, and it just makes people smile. And who doesn't love a French fry, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's funny you say that.
This is a prop. This is a shout out for that. I was on the East Coast. I think it was in the DC area, and I went to a Five Guys, and I'm from Shelley, Idaho, which other side of the state, but
the Russets.
The Russets, that's right. And they'll list where their potatoes come from. So it said Shelley, Idaho, and I looked at the guy at the counter, like, "Hey, I'm from there," and he's like, "Cool." I was like, "No, you don't get it."
He's like, I'm
from the place that they grow the potatoes, man. Like, I probably know the guy who grew that potato. He's like,
you probably do.
Cool, dude. I thought it was cool.
I think it's cool too. It's one of my kids' favorite things when we travel to go to a Five Guys and see that, oh, Shelley, Buell, Sun Valley, wherever.
See where it's all from. Yeah.
Yep.
So this is year, 3, 4 for you now?
Yep, year 3 as the executive director. Okay. But I was talking to some folks earlier. I think this is my 17th game that I've been a part of in some capacity. Wow. So, it's been fun to see the evolution. And we were the Humanitarian Bowl, and then the Roadies Humanitarian Bowl. And but you're right. I mean, I do think I need to do some research on it, but I think the Idaho Potato Commission is one of the longer serving title sponsors in all of bowl season.
Yeah. So I know you a little bit from your College of Idaho days too. So College of Idaho, they do an event every night. They turn and burn these things.
Yep.
Right now, as you're in charge of basically one game, I know there's several events within the game week, but how has it changed for you going from the College of Idaho, where there's a game every night, to now your full-time job is to plan one game?
Yeah, it's been interesting. I knew when I left the C of I that I was going to miss the people a lot, and I sure do. I mean, the coaches out there are amazing. The administration's great. Regan, who's the athletic director, is one of my best friends, and so I got to go to work with her every day. But being around student athletes just gives you so much energy and excitement, and so I do really miss that. But this has been a blast. I feel like this is really a community event, and so not only do I get to work with Boise State as our partner, the Potato Commission, but a lot of organizations here in town. Obviously, Visit Boise is a huge partner of ours as well, and there's a lot of pride that I have. I'm from a ag family, my parents farm, and so it's like my 3 passions, right? The city of Boise, Boise State football, college football, and the potato industry. So it's like all great things colliding. But yeah, I mean, I can't say I overly miss having an event every night. I've got two boys, 12 and 15, and they're playing basketball and baseball and football. So I get to actually go to their games now, which is really important and fun.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah. So, well, again, we appreciate you making the time for us tonight. I know it's a busy week for you, but appreciate everything that you do, not only for this bowl game and for our efforts at, not a shameless plug for Visit Boise, but do appreciate the time that you make for us as well, and being a part of our sports advisory group and stuff. That is
I love it.
important for us. So,
You guys, thank you so much for your time and really appreciate your attention on our game. So thanks so much.
yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to Monday. Thanks so much for jumping on.
Should be fun. Come
Yep.
see us.
Yeah.
Cheers. Have a good one. Thank you, Danielle.
You guys too.
All right. That was Danelle Brazil, Executive Director of the Famous Idaho Potato Bowl. So I'll put the graphic back up here. We'll kind of wrap up the thoughts on the Potato Bowl here. Again, Northern Illinois, 2.5-point favorite. I don't know a ton about these teams, but it seems like Northern Illinois might be the team to pick in this one, but should be a close game. Should be a fun game for Monday. I'm obviously going. You're planning to go too, yeah?
Yes. I just found the pictures of it was BYU was playing Central Michigan, and I have found these pictures of the Heisman Trophy on the blue. So I'm going to see if I can send that over to myself, right? And we'll pop that thing up. And that was funny. I'm telling you, man, it was great. Yeah. So I'm going to be there. We'll do a show from there. You and I are going to do live show from there. And then we'll be on the sidelines. We can't broadcast, but we can certainly send pictures and tweet and do Instagram. We actually do have an Instagram, which ironically is not being for some reason some idiot doesn't use Instagram very much. This guy,
weird.
Weird. But he needs to get on it. So
yeah. So there you have it. Famous Idaho Potato Bowl. That is Monday afternoon at 12:30 at Albertson Stadium, Northern Illinois and Fresno State. All right. So we talked U of I head coaching changes. Thomas Ford, the new head coach at U of I, new head coach. There's a head coaching vacancy at Washington State too. Their head coach going to Wake Forest. But one place where there isn't a head coaching vacancy is Boise State.
What?
Yeah, right. Spencer Danielson. I know they gave Jeremiah Dickey a new contract. He's the athletic director of Boise State, obviously, but he is by far the lowest paid coach in the college football playoff. By far. And to have a year that they're having like this, I don't know. Maybe something like that comes about this offseason. Who knows? But it'll be interesting to see how Boise State transitions through this transfer portal period, through this college football playoff, and as we go into college football playoff and the picks that we're about to make. You just can't help but wonder how many of these players are getting calls from other programs and maybe even the coach too.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a tough one because, you obviously want to keep your team together and do the best you can. And Malachi Nelson hitting the transfer portal, I think we knew it, right? Like there was there was no surprise there. And a lot of these kids, and it's not a lot. Honestly, there aren't a lot of kids in the transfer portal. I was reading and I was trying to find, be as updated as possible about what and who, when, where, and how. But the truth is it's going to happen. Somebody's going to offer somebody a lot of money. And if I'm that kid, I go. I do. I mean, if it's about money, if it's not about money, if you have enough money, if this kid has enough money, I say stay because you have something growing and brewing. But at the same time, it's tough to not want to follow the money.
Yeah, and I can understand that too. But at the same point, Boise State is a Group of 5 team in the college football playoff right now. So I would imagine that. I mean, there's got to be some players looking at them too. So I just can't imagine that. That's something that we could get into weeks and months from now as all of that develops and transfer portal really heats up. But for right now, I want to get into these first round games and I want to get your thoughts. Obviously, Boise State's going to play the winner, SMU and Penn State. So let's go ahead and start with that one. That game is Saturday night, December game in Happy Valley. It's going to be cold, possibly snowing, right? Penn State, 8.5-point favorite against SMU. Who do you like in that one? Who's going to the desert to play Boise State on New Year's Eve?
So first reaction is Penn State, and that's for obvious reasons. I mean, I would say talent across the board. the program. They've had a phenomenal year, lost a game, and it was to Ohio State, and it was a close-ish game as well. So that's my knee-jerk reaction. And then I want to think, all right, so then I have SMU, who comes back, plays really tough, had that game won versus Clemson. They had the game won, and then they ended up losing it. Dabo Swinney somehow pulled out some magic, and we won't even go into that.
Yeah.
But if I'm being honest with myself, I don't love the Penn State passing game. I think that they do a lot of things really well, but they don't do anything excellent. Nothing's excellent. Their running game's solid. They have a tight end who is a Mackey finalist, phenomenal player himself. But if I'm being honest, I'm going to have to lean on Penn State, and it's just pure depth and experience and playing at a high level, playing quality teams throughout the whole season. I think it prepares them, and I'm taking Penn State by a touchdown.
Yeah, look, the over-under is 52.5. I think the under hits in this one. 8.5 is I do think it's a close game. 8.5 is a lot to me.
Yeah.
So I do think Penn State wins the game, but I think it's closer than people are giving it credit for. So I'm going to take Penn State by a field goal there. Let's bounce backwards to the game. Friday night, that's going to be Indiana at Notre Dame. Notre Dame in this one is a 7-point favorite. Don't have to leave the state of Indiana for this one. 2 schools from Indiana playing, and that game is obviously at Notre Dame. But Notre Dame 7-point favorite. Friday night on ABC. Who do you like there?
Oh, I like Indiana. I do. I think Notre Dame has not proved themselves by any stretch of the imagination. They beat up on an Army team that lost to and they beat up on Navy, but Army lost to Navy. And if you're going to play the who wins, who, what, whatever, I know Indiana had a tough time versus Ohio State, and you could argue similar styles, but Notre Dame is not nearly explosive as Ohio State is. They don't have 2 first-round draft picks that are your receivers. They don't have a lot of those things. I actually think Indiana comes out firing and blazing, a little ticked off, but again, they're going to be rested. They didn't have to play in a championship game, and they still got in. So I'm Indiana, and I'm actually going to take them by probably 10.
Wow. Yeah, I'm with you here. I think Indiana can win that game. I'm surprised. Again, the line's this line's 7 points. I'm surprised it's that big.
It's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. And here's the deal. I've been, betting Indiana all year, and they've been making me money all year. So
you go, girl. You go.
Indiana. Indiana's been a covering machine for me this year. So, all right, let's go down to the 5-12 matchup. That is Clemson at Texas.
Yeah.
This line is 12 points. So Texas a 12-point favorite at home. Clemson obviously coming off that emotional win in the ACC championship. Winner of this one gets Arizona State. Texas, most people are going to be picking Texas in this one. But so the question here is, do you think Texas covers? Do you think Clemson has much of a chance in this one, I guess?
So I'm going to say a couple of factoids that I find interesting because I did live in Texas for 3 years, and I was able to attend a lot of high school football games because it was awesome. And I went to Jerry World. I went to AT&T Stadium. I saw the state championship games being played there. It was a lot of fun. So Clint Klubnik and Quinn Ewers played against each other in the state championship years ago for 6A. South Lake Carroll, and it was where Ewers went, and oh my gosh, I'm losing my mind. Anyway, Klubnik played for a team out of Austin. It's North Shore. No, that's down to Houston. Doesn't matter. Anyway, I don't think they have a chance. I think Texas is one of the most talented rosters in the whole country. And I think it's on display versus Georgia, where they didn't get pushed around. They didn't get outrun. They didn't get anything. As a matter of fact, they probably dictated for a while. Quinn Ewers in that game was on fire for a couple of quarters, and they had big plays. I mean, you look at Texas has this big play capability because of just the sheer athleticism. I don't think they hang. I don't. I love what Dabo does to a certain degree, and he's now starting to take transfers, by the way, out of the transfer portal. But I just think that Texas is way too talented to get hung up there. So I'm going to take Texas by a couple touchdowns.
Yeah, here's the other thing I like about Texas. It seems like they're kind of being overlooked a little bit in this thing. Strength of schedule talk, all that, right? So I think Texas is going to, they're at home. It's a 4:00 start, so they're going to come out firing, I think. And I think that's just going to come down to, like what you said. Texas just got the better roster. I do think Clemson could cover this, though. 12 points is, that's I do think I could see something like Texas by 10. I could see something like that, but I do think Texas will win the game. And finally, the 8-9 matchup. This is probably going to be the game of the weekend. This is Tennessee at Ohio State. Ohio State's 7.5 point favorite. I'll start on this one. I like Tennessee outright in this one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hammer the over too.
Problem is Tennessee's offense. Are they going to show up and can they move the ball? I'm being honest, because Ohio State plays a big physical style of defense, and they do it pretty well. Now, we have seen them when they play an explosive, quick team with a lot of speed like Oregon. Ohio State, they stayed in that game, but they really didn't have an answer. So the question is how explosive can Tennessee be? Because that's where you're going to neutralize. You're not going to push them around in the trenches. You're not. You're not going to beat them at the 3 yards in a cloud. You're not going to do that. That isn't Tennessee's game per se, but I'll be honest. I actually have Ohio State in this game. I do, and I think Ohio State has a chip on its shoulder. If it's not Michigan, and if it's not a massive game like a national championship, Ohio State typically shows up.
Yeah. I telling you, I like Tennessee in this one. I think their offense can sling the ball around the yard. That going into hostile environments, not worried about that with Tennessee, right? I think they got a proven track record. I think this is obviously the game of the weekend. So I'm taking the over, and I'm taking Tennessee and the points. And let's close with this one: Potato Bowl prediction: Fresno State or Northern Illinois.
All right, let's close with this. You got to show my screen. Come on.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, okay.
Here you go.
Look at that.
There's the Heisman Trophy. Look at that.
Heisman Trophy.
Yeah.
And that was BYU Central Michigan, like I said.
Yeah. So what year was this?
Actually, you know what? I can tell. Let me see here. It was in 2018. I have Northern Illinois by 6. Because I think Fresno's pieced this thing together to be here for the bowl game, and I think Northern Illinois has proven it. It just shows which team shows up, but Northern Illinois, that's my pick.
Yeah, I like Northern Illinois too. I think they're a bigger, more physical team. And how about the Heisman Trophy coming to the Blue back in 2018?
That's right.
Not coming back, Travis Hunter. We kind of talked about that one last show, which you can go back and listen to. Any shock from the Heisman Trophy selection, Travis Hunter?
Boy, I sure think that we called it, and I think everybody else listened to us, but it's exactly what we said. Should he have won it? Yes. Did he win it? No, because he had to beat Deion Sanders as well.
Yep. Yeah, we talked about that in last week's show. You go ahead and listen to that. We're the Fighting Taters. He's Ryan Luke. My name is Lucas Gephardt. Go ahead, follow us on Facebook. You can listen to the show and any of our previous shows on IdahoSports.com, Facebook page, YouTube, and X channel. You can also download our podcast and subscribe to wherever you get your podcasts. So go to the Potato Bowl on Monday, one of the best events of the year that we do in Boise. So
let's go.
See you then. He's Ryan Luke. I'm Lucas Gephardt. We'll see you later.